The wedding hall glowed like something taken from a dream I didn't belong to. Crystal chandeliers spilled warm light across polished marble floors, and the sound of laughter drifted through the open doors like an invitation meant for everyone except me. I stood at the edge of it all, holding the ivory envelope with my brother's name printed in elegant gold lettering Armin and Sophia. My brother's wedding, a day our family had spoken about for months with pride shining in their voices. I adjusted my suit, simple and carefully pressed, and took a step toward the main entrance. Before I could go any further, a young usher blocked my path. He looked uncomfortable, eyes darting between me and the hall behind him. Lowering his voice, he said, "Sir, family members on the groom's side are asked to use the service entrance. It's the groom's instruction." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. The words didn't make sense, not at first. Then they settled into my chest, heavy and sharp. The groom, my brother. I nodded slowly, because causing a scene would only prove whatever story had already been written about me. The usher gestured toward a narrow path along the side of the building. I followed it in silence, past humming generators and delivery carts, past doors meant to stay unseen. Each step felt like an eraser dragged across my place in the family. As I walked, memories surfaced uninvited. Late nights when Armin had called me, voice shaking, asking for help. The money I transferred without questions. The documents I signed because he said it was temporary. "Just trust me," he'd said, "we're brothers." The service door creaked open, and I slipped inside. The air smelled faintly of cleaning supplies and cold metal. I entered the hall from the back, unnoticed, as if that was where I had always belonged. Guests filled the room in shimmering fabrics and expensive perfumes. No one looked at me twice. When the music swelled and Armin appeared at the altar, the room erupted in applause. He looked flawless, confident, smiling, loved. I searched his face, hoping, foolishly, that his eyes would find mine. They didn't. I took a seat in the last row, folding my hands together to keep them from shaking. This was my brother's day, I reminded myself. I could endure a little humiliation for family. What I didn't know then was that this side door was not an ending, it was the beginning. The ceremony moved forward like a carefully rehearsed play, every smile timed, every word polished. I watched from the back row, clapping when everyone else did, standing when the music swelled, sitting when the priest spoke. From a distance, it must have looked like I belonged. Inside, I felt hollow, as if something essential had been quietly taken from me and no one had noticed. When the vows were exchanged and the applause faded into cheerful chatter, guests began drifting toward the reception hall. I waited until the crowd thinned before following. Old habits die hard, stay out of the way. Don't draw attention. Don't make things harder for others. I told myself it was maturity, but deep down I knew it was something closer to survival. The reception hall was breathtaking. Tall glass walls reflected golden light, and tables were arranged with perfect symmetry, each centerpiece glowing softly. I recognized the details instantly, the layout, the lighting, even the choice of flowers. I had approved these designs years ago during a quiet meeting that no one else remembered. Standing there now, unacknowledged, felt strangely unreal. I poured myself a glass of water and moved toward the edge of the room. Laughter surrounded me, warm and loud, but it didn't reach me. Conversations floated past like passing trains. "Is he part of the staff?" Someone whispered. "No, I think he's related maybe. He doesn't look important." Their words weren't cruel, just careless, which somehow hurt more. I didn't correct them. Explaining would have required revealing pieces of myself I was no longer willing to hand out. Across the room, I saw my parents posing for photos, pride written across their faces. Armin stood at the center, confident and radiant, telling a story that made everyone laugh. When he finally glanced in my direction, our eyes met briefly. His smile flickered, a crack so small no one else would notice, before he turned away as if I were just another guest. That was when the weight of silence pressed hardest, not anger, not sadness, understanding. I realized how long I had been shrinking myself so others could stand taller, how often I had accepted the back seat because it was easier than asking to be seen. The service entrance wasn't a mistake. It was a reflection of how little space I had been allowed to take. As the music rose and plates were served, something inside me shifted. The pain didn't vanish, but it sharpened into clarity. I straightened my shoulders and took a slow breath, grounding myself. I wasn't here to be noticed. I was here because this place existed in part because of me, and soon the room would remember that. The music slowed as dinner plates were cleared, and a gentle hum of conversation filled the hall. I had just begun to relax into the anonymity when the microphone screeched softly, drawing everyone's attention toward the stage. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped forward, posture straight, expression composed. I recognized him immediately, the venue manager. We had met many times before, usually in quiet offices, away from celebrations like this. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice calm but firm, "thank you for your attention for just a moment." The room gradually settled. Conversations faded, chairs shifted. Armin laugh at the head table, looked up with mild curiosity, clearly expecting another wedding formality. The manager scanned the crowd, then his gaze locked onto me. "For those of you enjoying this beautiful evening," he continued, "this venue stands here because of the vision and trust of one individual who believed in it long before it became what you see today." A ripple of interest moved through the room. I felt my heartbeat slow, as if my body already knew what was coming before my mind fully caught up. Still, I remained where I was, unsure if standing would break whatever fragile balance had held until now. The manager lifted his hand slightly and gestured in my direction. "Sir, would you please join us?" Dozens of faces turned. Confusion spread first, then curiosity. I rose slowly, every movement deliberate, and walked toward the stage. The sound of my footsteps echoed louder than the music ever had. Armin's expression shifted the moment he recognized me. The color drained from his face, and the smile he wore stiffened, frozen in disbelief. Our parents leaned forward, whispering urgently to one another. When I reached the front, the manager smiled respectfully and spoke the word that changed everything: "Our owner." The silence was immediate and complete. It felt as though the room itself had stopped breathing. A second passed, then another. Gasps followed, scattered and sharp. Whispers burst out like sparks catching fire. "The owner? Are you serious?" I thought. Applause began hesitantly, unsure, then grew stronger as realization settled in. I didn't smile. I didn't bow. I simply met my brother's eyes. For the first time that night, he looked at me fully, not as background, not as an afterthought, but as someone he had never truly understood. I leaned in slightly, my voice low enough for only him to hear. "You asked me to come through the service entrance." I said calmly, "I did, but this place, this was always mine." I stepped back as the applause continued, not for revenge, not for triumph, but for the truth finally standing where it belonged. The applause slowly faded, but the shift in the room remained. Conversations resumed in hushed tones, eyes still following me wherever I moved. I felt none of the triumph people imagine when power is revealed. What I felt instead was lightness, like I had set down a weight I'd been carrying for years without realizing how heavy it was. The manager thanked the guests and handed the microphone to the DJ. Music returned, brighter than before, yet nothing felt the same. Armin remained frozen at the head table, his confidence fractured. When our parents finally approached me, their expressions were a mix of pride, confusion, and regret. I hugged them gently, offering no explanations. Some truths don't need speeches. I stepped outside onto the balcony, letting the cool night air settle my thoughts. The city lights shimmered below, reflected in the glass walls I had once approved on blueprints. For the first time that evening, I allowed myself to breathe freely. Footsteps sounded behind me. "Why didn't you tell me?" Armin's voice was softer now, stripped of ceremony and arrogance. He stood a few steps away, no longer the groom admired by hundreds, just my younger brother again. I turned to face him. In his eyes, I saw something unfamiliar regret, real and unpolished. "You never asked." I replied quietly. "And I learned a long time ago that explaining myself didn't change how you treated me." He swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to. I thought you were fine staying out of the spotlight." "I was fine being invisible," I said. "What I wasn't fine with was being erased." The words landed gently but firmly between us. He nodded, shame lowering his gaze. An apology hovered on his lips, but some moments pass too late to fix everything they break. "I hope your marriage brings you happiness," I added, meaning it, truly. He looked up, surprised by the calm in my voice. Inside, the celebration continued. I returned briefly to thank the staff, exchanging nods and quiet smiles. Then, without fanfare, I made my way toward the exit. This time, no one redirected me. No one questioned where I belonged. The main doors opened effortlessly. As I stepped outside, I glanced back once, at the lights, the music, the chapter of my life that had finally closed. I hadn't taken revenge with anger or humiliation. I had taken it with patience, dignity, and truth, and that was sweeter than anything I could have said. I walked away through the front entrance, shoulders straight, heart steady, knowing one thing with absolute certainty: I would never again enter my own life through a side door.